To this tutorial of the month. As you can see on my side is the one and only Charles Hastings. So we will discuss with you today the text that Lama Tsering was teaching on a few days ago, like 2 days ago. It's called Droplets of Nectar. It is a text by Dharma Wangpo, and yeah, it is very pithy, and it shows all the important steps on the path, and we will go into that. And Charles is one of our senior editors in Cancer Vision Project, and without saying that you're old, but you're
I'm old, don't worry.
Since many years. I just heard like 68, Charles started to become a Buddhist, and then we're learning from masters like Cancer Rinpoche, Duchum Rinpoche, Kanji Rinpoche. So that is really, one has to have some years, to be able to do so. So and that is amazing. So it's a big honor and pleasure to have Charles in our team and here today. He also concluded 2 traditional 3-year retreats in Dodon, and also has a BA and MA degree in Asian language from Cambridge University, where he studied archaeology and anthropology. He's also co-founder of Padmakara and connected and active in 84,000. Yeah, so it's really wonderful to have you here tonight. Having said that, I'm also happy that you are all here. And thank you, Ina and Rashmi, to be always our, the best word, I don't know, background queens, to make all that possible. And also thank you for Clara Benson to be here. She's translating simultaneously into French. So if you need to listen to French, you can click on this globe button. Okay, then let's start with the prayers. It's maybe too much sharing here, right? Sorry. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha sublime, we seek refuge until awakening. By virtue of our giving and the like, may we awaken to benefit all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha sublime, we seek refuge until awakening. By virtue of our giving and the like, may we awaken to benefit all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha sublime, we seek refuge until awakening. By virtue of our giving and the like, may we awaken to benefit all. The blessing of Manjushri appearing as emanation of Vimalamitra, the 13th rebirth of Gyaltse Laje, Pema Dongrak Lingpa, holder of the 7 special transmissions, Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo, to you we pray. Okay, so what we are doing today, it's our usual thing, right? Every month we have like a teaching on a text, and then at some point later we do like a tutorial. And so since Lama Tsering taught 2 days ago, today is tutorial time. And so Charles and I will present a little bit, and in between there's always a lot of space, for discussion, Q&A, and whatever you want to share, so that it's a little bit like a workshop idea and not just another YouTube thing that one could just watch without being interactive. So please feel invited to discuss. Maybe it's easiest if you raise your virtual hand when you have something to discuss, and then we can talk. That would be the nicest. And the idea is today that we will go through the text. I will cover sort of the first part, and then Charles will cover the second part, so that we have a good understanding of what the text is or means or is about. And then Charles will guide a meditation on the text, and then we will conclude. And as I said, the text is really like, everything is in it, basically. It starts with the view, then the 4 thoughts that turn the mind from confusion, delusion, samsara, to wisdom, to insight. and culminating in a proper heartfelt sadness, you know, a renunciation with samsaric existence. And then based on that, we are invited to take refuge. And that is how far I will present the text. And then Charles will begin with explaining the Bodhicitta, then the importance of merit, the accumulation of merit and purification, Guru Yoga, and then the higher inner tantras, and concluding with the final aspiration. And I want to show you, of course, the text so that we are all on the same page before we then go into it. So maybe you have seen it already. This is our little website. Not so little, actually. It's already such a treasure. And this is the text we are looking into. And Rashmi has already shared that link. So to not overshare the screen, you know, with sharing the text, you can open it if you wish. And I will just start guiding us through it. So it starts with Aho. That is, I guess, like an expression of joy, happiness, you know, that we are, that the yogi at this point is expressing. Dharma Khensa Wangpo is expressing that. And the reason why Dharma Khensa Wangpo has that joy or that bliss is because he has realized that view that he is then sharing with us in the next 4 lines, you know, where he is basically coming from the highest possible view from Ati Yoga and saying that we are basically good, you know, we are basically our ground, our true being. You know, if somebody asks, who are you? Then we are basically primordial pure. You know, that is how he starts. So there is no ignorance, there is no obscuration, you know. All of them, they are only like far away, superficially, adventitiously, but actually we are like pure by nature, you know, free from any obscurations. And of course, we know it is the nature of our mind is also empty. So there's nothing that we can pinpoint, you know, what we can with solidity grasp or find, you know. It's often said in the Tantras, you know, like even if all the Buddhas came together and tried to find that true nature, you can also call it Buddha nature or Rangjung Geshe, the self-arisen primordial wisdom, Rigpa, you know, all that. It is there, but it's of course empty by nature, but it's full of qualities, but empty of obscurations. So, and that is what Dharma Khensa Wangpo is introducing us to, that is our true nature, that primordial purity, or also called here like sort of Dhamma Dhatu, you know, like the basic space of the ground. And it is from that ground also how we know it from Buddha Samantabhata's Dzogchen prayer, Kunsang Wanlam, then that everything arises, you know. It's a radiant awareness, and then there are manifestations of the ground, you know. Then all the appearances, may they look like outside or inside, you know, they all come from that one ground. They're all a reflection of wisdom. So the mind and its world are all coming from that ground that is pre-samsara or pre-nirvana. And these were the first 2 lines. And then the next lines, endowed with the 7 factors of union, which dawn as great spontaneous perfection, leg-born Ogyen Guru, care for me without parting. So here, that is again, emphasized, you know, that this luminous, empty, true nature of mind, full, like spontaneously present. I mean, the Buddha quality is spontaneously present. That this then manifests as whatever, you know. And we are, invoking Guru Rinpoche, the lake-born, to, never part from us. But actually, we have never been divorced of him either, because he is sort of our true nature of mind. So only if not seeing that true nature, then we are parting, but he himself, let's say, he's never parting, he's always there, always available. That nature of mind, that ground, that basic space is always there. And our only problem is that we are moving away from it and entangling ourselves in delusion. So that is sort of the view that Jamyang Khyentse Bangpo starts with, and that's why it's really Aho, that's why it's really, that is a reason to celebrate. Is that clear? If not, please raise your hand and we can discuss. Okay. So even though this is all perfect, right? It's primordially pure. It cannot be stained. And it's, there's also the mention of these 7 factors of union, so I'm a little bit paraphrasingly going through them, so even though this ground, it's like, there's so much joy because of this completion of qualities, and even though things are in union there, the emptiness, the luminosity, or the emptiness and all the appearances, and that is like unceasingly the case, and uninterruptedly, and it is not just mere emptiness, but there's always this luminosity, the qualities, the compassion is there for all beings. Even though this is really perfect, I miss it, and therefore we need a path. We need something to bring us, bring us back to that ground. And that is then, and now maybe I'm just sharing it briefly to read with you. That is then where Jamyang Khyentse Bangpo invites us to do this contemplation on the 4 thoughts. So the first one is, he's basically reminding us that we do need conducive conditions, to find our way back to the ground. And that the first, our working base, how Gampopa is putting it, is attaining the freedom and advantages, in other words, the precious human opportunity that are so difficult to find is the result of my good deeds. So, as you know, classically, there are so many lists, of qualities, what this precious human life entails. But basically, it means Dharma is around, Dharma is alive. We are accepted by the teachers. We have interest, devotion in the Dharma, and we have diligence and understanding, receptibility and ability also to practice the Dharma, So that's what it's about. And we have the precious opportunity. And so that, again, is a reason for, what was it? Aho, right? It's another reason to celebrate because it's super rare, as it's said here. And it's super precious because we can attain Buddhahood. We can find that innate freedom in this lifetime. Formula represent actually in this very moment. I mean, there's nothing else anyway. And so this precious opportunity is rare, and it's not randomly appearing, like by chance, but it's the result of our good deeds. So we had to do some effort or effortless effort in the past, some accumulation of good things, of marriage, wishes, aspiration, that we now have this precious human ambition, to practice, to come back to the ground, to understand that we left the ground sort of, and then to follow the instructions to come back to the ground and realize the truth, our true nature. So it's great what we have, this precious human life, but it is not taken for granted. That's why Jameen Khyentse Bangpo is asking us that we remember the uncertainty of the time of death. So that is the contemplation on impermanence. And impermanence is just a fact, you know, on relative level, you know, because things are compounded, and that's why they're impermanent, you know, impermanent. So it's not really good or bad, you know. But in this context, and often in Buddhist context, we use it in the sense that we lose something precious. And then, of course, the truth of impermanence is sad or tragic. So, in other words, we have this precious human opportunity to get the Dharma, to see the truth. But that opportunity is bound to die at some point, you know. So, and we don't know yet when, because it's dependent on so many causes and conditions, but there are many causes for the end of our life. And that contemplation is done here so that we really have an impetus to practice the sublime Dharma. So we use our mortality in order for like carpe diem, right? For carpe momentum, you know, to really make the best use of the precious opportunity that we have. And then what shall we do? Here, karma principle, we should correctly adopt and reject. And that has many levels, you know, like it can be very outer level, you know, when, I don't know, since I see Charles, you know, giving him a glass of water is maybe an action I should adopt, and instead of stealing him from him a glass of water, you know, that needs to be rejected. But that is a very outer level, you know, of practice. But on more deeper levels, yeah, we should reject everything that takes us away from the ground, you know, takes us further away from the truth, makes us more unaware. All of that needs to be rejected. And we should adopt everything that brings us closer to the ground, closer to the truth, to the true nature, that brings more awareness of that truth. So it's always this, I forgot how Lama Tsering was putting it, but it's always the same. It's always about this movement, you know, like here we're trying, since we moved away from wisdom or the ground, now we need to move back, you know, from samsara, from confusion. We need to move back to wisdom or the ground. And this contemplation then is concluded in the text with a heartfelt sadness towards samsara, because we understand as long as we are away from the ground and somewhere entangled in our thoughts, stories, emotions, confusions, unawareness, then that is called samsara. Even though it's empty by nature, even though it's a display of the ground, it is suffering. It's confusion. It's unwanted. And so therefore, that is not a place to be. So we lose interest in it, you know. We renounce it. And instead, yeah, then go on the path to liberation. And that's what is said here, you know. So basically, we are starting the movement back to our roots, to our ground. And how we do that? Oh, is that clear? Or do you want to discuss anything on that? Okay, then I will then just, yeah, I think I have one more line and then it will be Charles' turn. So what we then do is, so yeah, being aware of being sad, you know, about that unnecessarily and unnecessary suffering and the end situation in the dissatisfactoriness of samsara, you know, like away from the recognition of the ground, being aware that this is not the real deal. We want to find the real deal and the ground, and we take refuge to whoever found that truth. and whoever taught that truth, and whoever wants to practice that truth or recognize that truth. So, and for that, the three jewels are our only refuge. So, because Buddha has, you know, at the ground of Buddha and my ground and our grounds are all same, you know, they're undifferentiated, you know, how Maitreya says in the Uttara Tantra Shastra. But so from the ground level, we are all same, Buddha nature level, let's say. But the amazing thing is Buddha has recognized his ground and is never leaving from it, you know. And so therefore, Buddha is definitely the authority to take refuge to, you know, because he knows what he's talking about. And he is kindly, generously, compassionately talking about it. Yeah, how we left the ground and how we can come back. And also how, yeah, again, how much suffering there is if we are not realizing the true nature. So that is the Dharma, you know, he taught all that. And so we are taking also refuge into the Dharma. And then last but very far from least, there are also Sangha. So this means like the third jewel. That means they're like great practitioners, let's say, our masters, you know, who are maybe not totally Buddha yet, but I cannot judge, but who definitely have a good view and realization of the ground, of Rigpa. And so they are therefore qualified guides, you know, to accompany us, you know, be our spiritual friends, take us by their hands, and then bring us back to our home, you know, to our true nature. So therefore, that is what we are taking in here on the outer level, you know, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, as the Buddha as the teacher, the Dharma as the teaching, the path, the Sangha as the companions. But of course, on the absolute level, based on the view that Shaman Khensa Wangpo was starting the prayer with, or the song with, we are also taking refuge to these Buddha, Dharma, Sangha in us, you know, this primordial purity, then the spontaneous presence, and then this compassionate responsiveness that is innate in all of us. So that is, of course, the deepest form of refuge, but we also need the outer support. And of course, this should not be like a journey only for ourselves, but there are so many sentient beings, so therefore we need also bodhicitta, and that is what Charles will soon share with us. But before we give this microphone to Charles, anything? Because please, let's discuss if you have anything you want to share or anything you're doubting. But
there is one question in the chat.
Oh, let's see
Arne,
the chat.
do you want to address it?
Could you say more about the 7 factors of union which dawn as great spontaneous perfection? Yes, I was sort of paraphrasing that, you know. So these teachings, they're actually the 7 factors of union. This is usually or often mentioned in the context of Sambhogakaya, you know, when we talk about the 5 excellences of Sambhogakaya, you know, instead of having like a ordinary view of everything, you know, oh, a normal person, like let's say we are in a teaching, you know, and then the Rinpoche, we think, oh, it's just a normal guy, you know, it's just a normal teaching, the listeners are just normal, the topic is normal, and it's a normal time and a normal place. Instead of that ordinary perception, we are always invited to have excellent perception, you know, seeing the teacher as the Buddha, the retinues also like bodhisattvas or dakas, dakinis, the teachings, ideally the dzogchen, the time beyond time, and the place is, yeah, a pure realm. And so if we have that visualization, then usually one is saying that is endowed with these, how is it called? The 7 factors of union. And in our case, how the Vajra song starts, these 7 factors of union, we can also, without even talking about the 5 excellences of Sambhogakaya, we can also talk about this 7 factors of union, because they're present in what is said in the beginning of the text, you know, that there's this primordial wisdom and awareness, and everything is a display from that. So there's like this emptiness, and at the same time, this luminosity, and that is in union. So let's go through the 7. So if these both are there, you know, emptiness and appearance or display, that is already that is in union. That is 1 of the 7, and that is also great bliss. That union, that is 2nd. It's full of qualities that we can enjoy, and enjoy is the 3rd. Even though this is all amazing, it's an amazing display, and it's there, it's the best possible thing happening, and it's flawless, but still it is empty by nature, right? We talked about that. So that is number 4. Even though empty by nature, it is full of compassion. So that is number 5. And then from that, the enlightened activity is happening, and that is unceasing. It's number 6. It's unceasing because people are suffering, and because Buddhas don't need to have an effort, you know, so they don't need a break, or they don't go to Hawaii or something for a holiday, you know, but it's unceasing. And then number 7, it's also uninterrupted. Again, because it's effortless, and it's always necessary, and it's not really caused, you know, so it's unchanging. So these are the 7. Okay, then, so important, everything falls apart if there's no bodhicitta. So therefore, Charles, please make us not fall apart.
Well, thank you very much, Arne. Thank you very much for that last explanation. I learned a lot. And so we come to the bodhicitta. Let's just see what it says. I'll share the screen a minute. Okay. So I hope you can see this. It says, first, when it says taking refuge in the 3 jewels is the foundation of enlightened qualities, it's really our entrance into the Dharma. And the bodhicitta is the route or the entrance into the Mahayana. And so actually, I think if we are doing Vajrayana practice, for instance, we have to realize that this is rooted in the Mahayana. And this bodhicitta really needs to be the central part of our practice. If you're trying to do Vajrayana practices or any kind of practices without it, then it's not something else. And if it's maybe not even Dharma. Dharma is, as Lama Tsering so eloquently put it, to take us from confusion, ignorance, delusion, a totally imaginary view of things, to reality, to wisdom. So if our mind is small, then it won't work. It won't. We tend to have a kind of clinging notion that this is real, this is how I think, and then we think we have a sort of scenario in which case we're the star of the movie and everything's happening to us, and that our wishes and ambitions are based on what we can have and or what we can avoid, and really that this is very small-minded. This is nothing to do with the sort of reality that Arne has just been talking about. I think it's important to realize that this bodhicitta, we not thinking I, but thinking all beings with incredible love and compassion, is not just a transformation of our relationship with others, but it's a huge transformation of ourself. And the other thing is that to develop bodhicitta is relatively easy. It talks about the twofold bodhicitta here, and there's two kinds. There's the intention and the action, or aspiration, and there's different ways you can translate that, but translating and really entering into it, putting it into practice. And to develop the intention is relatively easy. Of course, we can take the bodhicitta vow and so forth, but it's something that needs to be cultivated all the time. And we can think, when we think of all the suffering in the world, many people react by being angry, by being afraid, or by being depressed. We should react with compassion. Compassion for the ignorance. When you look at the terrible things happening in the world, you can see that on the part of the leaders, but not only, they come from the famous negative emotions: attachment, hatred, jealousy, pride, and ignorance. And the basis of all is not understanding things the way they are, having a false understanding of reality. And this is causing incredible suffering. And when there's so much suffering, they say that the bodhisattva's compassion is equal to the need. And in fact, a true bodhisattva has having an understanding of emptiness and an experience of emptiness is never discouraged, just keeps going without being worried about the result. Very often, if we try to be compassionate, we do something we think is good. When it doesn't work, when people don't appreciate it, then we give up or we get burnt out or depressed. And this is why we need to cultivate this until it's second nature, until our heart is melting with love and compassion all the time. And then we are in a position to put it into action. Now, you heard about the 6 perfections, right up to from giving up to the perfection of wisdom. It's described in the text how you do that. And there's things that we can really do in our daily life, generosity. It may be material generosity, but it may be being generous with our time, and in particular, generous with our attitude. That we train our mind by training our attitude, because everything starts with the mind, and the actions, what you say and what you do, comes from the way you see things. So when we do this bodhicitta practice, then it's something we can do every day. When we see little bugs, we can feel, just trying to survive, we can feel compassion. When we see people in the street, we can feel love and compassion. With our family, we can feel love and compassion. And when things are difficult and when people are difficult, it's a wonderful chance to practice patience. So this is really something that in a very down-to-earth way, we can practice in all circumstances, not just sitting on our meditation cushion, but in all circumstances. And then, of course, there's the absolute bodhicitta. And that is really That's really the, and initially it's seeing that all these sufferings and things are empty of a concrete reality. And gradually, when we talk about the great perfection, it's very much absolute bodhicitta, in fact. So when we're doing the preliminary practices, as you can see, this follows that that theme. We start with the 4 mind changes, then we have the refuge, and then the bodhicitta. And they say that the bodhicitta is it's included in what we call the path of characteristics and in the Vajrayana. But after that, we come to the practices that are more specific to the Vajrayana path. I'm going to do what Arne does. Does anybody have any questions at this stage?
Yeah, I tried to.
Apparently not. Okay, then we just go on, just to share again. So, diligence in accumulating merit and purifying obscurations is the fertile field for experience and realization. So in the preliminary practices, this covers the practice of Vajrasattva to purify obscurations and the offering of mandala to accumulate merit. And these are really crucial to our path because, for instance, the fact that have I shared this? I don't know. Anyway, never mind. And so these are crucial to our path because, for instance, our teachers often say, if you have met the Dharma in this life, or if you have met a teacher, or if you have a connection with them, this is because of incredible merit in your past lives. And there's a saying that what we are is a result of what we've done, and what we will become is the result of what we do now. So in order to be able to, for instance, have absolute wisdom, you need to have merit. People talk about the kind of gradual path and the sudden enlightenment. To be able to have sudden enlightenment, you have to have a huge amount of merit and have to purify your ordinary perceptions. I think Arne has talked about this, and certainly Lama Tsering talked about this in depth. That we have these very material perceptions of things. We don't see everything as empty and radiant. We see objects, we see things that we want, things that we don't want. And it's kind of endless ignorance. And when we do these purification practices, we're constantly chipping away at that ignorance. These are all means to make our mind free of our ordinary perceptions so that we can really see things the way they are. And I think we can see all these practices, like the 4 mind changes and the notion of renunciation, understanding that samsara is a mistake. People say that samsara is suffering. Lama Tsering said, well, it's just not real. And everybody is seeing it as real, and everyone is suffering terribly. And so it's to get out of this and take beings out of this with incredible care and love that we do these practices. And so the fact of doing the mantra of Vajrasattva and considering the nectar pouring from Vajrasattva and cleaning us of all our obscurations. This is a way that we can make this real to ourselves. And also, you know, that the things that it talks about in some of the more advanced practices, for instance, concerning the channels and the tigles in the channels and all that. It's all connected with this. And even actually, if you do the refuge practice and you do prostrations, those physical movements have an effect on your Vajra body, that it's purifying your ordinary experience of your body. And when you do the mandala, same way, it's the movement is purifying, and the visualization is purifying your vision of the world. And this is something that will come later and have importance later in the more advanced practices. And so when we say the fertile field for experience and realization, as you know, if you plant something in a stony field with no water, no fertilizer, nothing will grow. So really, these practices are creating the conditions for wisdom to grow and the conditions for the other practices we're going to do to work. This is why teachers often insist on doing these preliminary practices first. It's really, it's difficult perhaps for us to realize just how gross our minds are. I don't want to sound gloomy about that, but when we do practice, for instance, we may meditate every day, or we may have done retreats and so on, and then we just go back into our ordinary perceptions and our ordinary emotions. It's amazing to what extent even people who have practiced for years are able to just have very, very ordinary way of seeing things and ordinary way of behaving. I, of course, know from my personal experience that that it can be rather a long haul to purify your everyday deluded way of thinking, speaking, and acting. So then we come to the Guru Yoga. It says devotional Guru Yoga is the pillar of practice. In fact, they say that all our practices, if we are a Vajrayana practitioner, all our practices should be Guru Yoga in a sense. And the Guru is really, the Guru is the Buddha, Guru is Dharma, Guru is Sangha, Guru is Lama, Yidam, Dakini, and may even the levels of realization of the great perfection, the Guru includes everything. Now, when we say Guru, nowadays, anybody can set themselves up as a Guru. And if they have a good following on social media, then it probably looks quite good. We're talking about someone who has really the qualities of realization. I've been very fortunate myself to have as teachers my root teacher, if you like, Kanjo Rinpoche, Dingo Khensa Rinpoche, and Dujo Rinpoche, also Trishik Rinpoche, Nyusho Kempo, and a number of other wonderful teachers. And I really think the teachers that we have today are marvelous. Dzongsa Khensa Rinpoche and Jigme Khensa Rinpoche. I knew Jigme Khensa Rinpoche when he was a child, and he was already extraordinary. And when I was traveling with him, I noticed that the qualities that you see in public were just as present in every situation, that there's this stability and unchanging wisdom. And so this is something that gives you a lot of confidence. You know, when we've just met a teacher, we don't necessarily know what they're like, but I'm talking about teachers that I've known for over 40 years. And so Pema Wangyo Rinpoche, Khyentse Rinpoche, and so forth. And so I really have a reason to appreciate their qualities, having seen them in all circumstances. And in fact, it's important to remember the teacher, every day, and several times a day, as often as you can, and to feel the teacher's blessings. And you know, that in fact, Shakyamuni Buddha said that for those that think of him, he is always there. And this is what our teachers say as well. And if we don't think of them, they are there as well. But just like the rest of it, we forget, and our mind wanders off into a different track. So it's also said that the Guru Yoga really introduces you to the real wisdom, that with, for instance, the development stage, it's more the example wisdom, and that this is the absolute true wisdom just from the Guru's blessings. So I really urge everybody to make this Guru Yoga an essential part of their practice, and especially to remember it all the time so that it animates you. And so when we've completed, or at least made a good stab at the preliminary practices, we come to the generation stage. Sometimes it's called the development stage. And it says, perceiving whatever arises as the enlightened body of the deity is the culmination of the generation stage. So there's a lot of details in this. Some generation stage practices are quite simple, some are extremely complex. And the whole purpose is to transform your everyday perceptions into a wisdom perceptions. Our perceptions of our body, our perceptions of our surroundings, our perceptions of the world, our perceptions of people, everything that we experience. And we start by just dissolving everything, and then compassion, bliss arises and transforms into the deity. And in some sadhanas, like Kriya Tantra, we consider the deity in front, giving us blessings and transforming us. In, for instance, Mahayoga sadhanas, we consider that we are the deity. And we try to maintain that feeling of being the deity in our everyday life. And this is something that needs work. The reason that we do retreats where we recite mantras an enormous amount of time and really work on the visualization is because it's extremely difficult to change our habits. So we're gradually chipping away at our ordinary habits to transform them into wisdom. And some people might find this relatively easy. Some people might find it very difficult, for instance, the practice of visualization. And I do think that if you maintain the notion of Guru Yoga and that you're receiving the Guru's blessings, this will really be quite helpful, and to have confidence. And then we come to what we call, what does he call it? The perfection stage. And sometimes they say the fulfillment stage. And It says, meditating on the winds inseparable from the mind is the heart essence of the perfection stage. So it's important to say, I think, at this stage that in our Nyingma tradition, that when we do the development stage, the perfection stage should already be present. And in fact, the view should be present. It shouldn't be just in a more almost material way. And then when we, at the end, we dissolve and we arise again. And this is all part of the completion stage. And when we actually moving on to that practice, we would be, for instance, working with the channels and the chakras, and we're really basically transforming we say that normally the mind is like a blind rider, a crippled rider on a blind horse, which is going all over the place. So when we visualize the channels, we visualize them as very straight and luminous, but as we are now, everything is just a big tangle. And we just are totally bound up in our ordinary perceptions. And this is reflected in the body. And the Vajra body, as they call it, is something that we're not really aware of. We're aware of all sorts of aches and pains and material experiences in the body, but not really the movements of the subtle movements. And when we do these practices, it's to get everything into the central channel so that it dissolves into emptiness wisdom. And there are a lot of practices, visualizations, and exercises to do that. I think it's important here to say that we sometimes talk about the path of means and the path of liberation. That's it. That's Taplam and Drolam. And so this is not the only way to do things. And especially if you practice the Guru Yoga and you emphasize the mind teachings, you might not really do very much of this sort of practice. But I think it's important to see that in all the practices, there's the aspects of means and wisdom. Even when we're doing the refuge practice, especially when we're doing the Vajrasattva and Mandala practices, this is very much the case. And even when we're doing the practices of the great perfection, contrary to what many people think, there's quite a lot of means involved in that too. So really these things need to go together, just as wisdom and compassion need to go together. They say like two wings of a bird. If one is missing, then the bird can't fly. So really our compassionate attitude has to be present in all the practices, and the openness that the relaxation, I think, is what Lama Tsering says, where you just let go. And ideally, when you're doing these various visualizations or practices involving skillful means, there should be this letting go of your solidity, your conceptual, ordinary way of thinking all the time. We think of this just when you're sitting, doing a simple sitting practice, but in fact, really this freedom of letting go should be there not only when you're sitting on the cushion, but actually in your everyday life. And for instance, when you have some kind of emotion cropping up and you feel upset or angry or afraid or whatever, just come back to the nature of that feeling and then experience that for a second, and it makes a difference to how you will react, how you will be, how you will behave. And so then the next one, I'm just going to share again, sorry. Quite interesting to have a little look at this. So it says, cultivating the union of basic space and awareness is the engagement of the great perfection. Yingrik Zungjuk Kyangwa Dzogchenki Jokso. So Ying and Rigpa. Ying is the space, Dharmakaya, the space of Dharmakaya, the Dharma Dhatu. Space, and Rik is our awareness. So everything is by nature perfect, perfectly empty, and but not just empty, but luminous. And our mind has this quality of luminosity intrinsically. Now, in terms of the great perfection, a lot of people are very interested in this and definitely want to jump into it sometimes without having done any preliminary practices or other preparation. And, there's stories of people who have managed to realize the great perfection extremely simply and easily. Of course, this means that they had a lot of merit, that their minds were in some way pure, and they had especially great devotion and confidence in a qualified teacher. And a lot of people talk about, having had pointing out instructions. And I want to say something about that because it's possible to have been present when a teacher is pointing out instructions to a group and really not have the experience, or maybe have some kind of intellectual understanding and actually really missing the point. And also, one shouldn't dismiss the gradual progress that one can make in the direction of the nature of the mind. For instance, when you just have an emotion or a thought, and you just come back to presence and you look inside at the nature of your mind, and progressively you are moving in the right direction. You might be thinking of your practice as just something that you do, but if you really take it as being something to discover the nature of mind, to understand what emptiness really means, and with a great curiosity and great thirst for realization, then I think that the practice that you do, whatever practice it is, can be moving in that direction. And of course, in the great perfection, there are different stages. There's the primordial purity aspect and the spontaneous presence aspect. And the fact that everything is perfect, that we have this Buddha nature intrinsically since the very beginning, is the real basis for all this stuff, not just for the great perfection, but for the other practices that we've been discussing as well. And just to remember that and to remind yourself of that, rather than being completely taken in the sort of materialistic vision of things that is everywhere nowadays, is extremely helpful for your practice. You don't have to feel you're running after some distant goal, but just trying to come back to who you really are. So now then, for the final part, just share again, I think. Except that I lost the thing that I was sharing, so you'll have to be patient for a minute. Okay. Okay. So it says, by having the good fortune to continuously apply the key points, along with resting in the direct recognition of my true nature, the lake-born Guru channels, winds, and drops are purified. So our nature is the lake-born Guru, Guru Rinpoche. Now, Guru Rinpoche is considered to be the second Buddha, and the source of this lineage, the source of wisdom. And since the Guru is Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, since the Guru is all the qualities of every level of practice, since the Guru represents for us the true reality of our nature, when we say resting, along with resting in the direct recognition of my true nature, the lake-born Guru, this means that merging our mind with the Guru's mind is getting back to your true nature. And you can really practice that. You can visualize, for instance, Guru Rinpoche in front of you, or your teacher in the more everyday form or as a deity, and really receive the blessings, and then the Guru melts into you and you just rest. It can be so simple. Or even just the thought of the Guru without any visualization or anything. Just to remember and watch back and be there, this is what it means. So we are applying the key points of the practice that we just mentioned, which are what supports being able to experience your true nature. And it says channels, winds, and drops are fully purified. So all the things that we've been talking about in the perfection stage are accomplished. And in fact, it's very interesting that there's the aspect of the means and there's the aspect of the wisdom, and really they go together. By working on the means, it generates the wisdom. And the wisdom aspect, more you have the correct view, also the rest of it, the drops and winds and channels, it becomes purified by that. And in the same way, when you wander in your very, very gross, ordinary perceptions, and when you have negative emotions and things like that, it has the opposite effect. So we can see that the means are very important, but coming back to the wisdom, coming back to the nature of the Guru is absolutely crucial. In the center of the lotus net, pure realm of luminous clarity, may my aspiration to accomplish the rainbow body in this very life be achieved. So when we say the lotus net, I think I would like to tell you a little story about this. That there was a prayer to Guru Rinpoche that Mathieu wanted to use when we were in Darjeeling. And the last line of it was, at the end, may I attain Buddhahood in lotus light, in the realm of lotus light. And Kanchana said, well, you can say the prayer as long as you don't think that's a place. And so I think when we're talking about the lotus net pure realm, we're really talking about a state rather than a place. Of course, we do talk about Buddha fields and so on and so forth. But I think, that when you have realization, everything is a Buddha field. And may my aspiration to accomplish the rainbow body in this very life be achieved. So, of course, you probably know about the rainbow body, that when the physical body dissolves into rainbow light, which does happen and has happened in this century. It's not just an old story, but it doesn't happen very often. And I think you might say, well, what is an ordinary person like me making this kind of aspiration for? Now, if you don't, there's a saying, if you don't ask for it, you won't get it, And so we don't know how much realization we manage to achieve in this life. But to have that aspiration is already very, very important. And the teachers often say that what we're able to do in our life is, in terms of Dharma, is to do with our previous aspirations, and that it's very important to make aspiration. So to make huge aspirations, and not only for ourselves, but for beings, for the world, and everything, is extremely meritorious, for one thing, and it changes something. It really does change something. So we shouldn't hesitate to make enormous aspirations. So we're going to do a little practice going through this in just contemplating each one and then resting at the end. But I wonder if anybody has any questions at this stage. I'm not as experienced in this as Arne, but you can, I don't know what you have to do, put your hand up or put something in the chat or something or whatever. It's completely open if anybody has anything they would like to share or ask or whatever. I see there are a lot of very knowledgeable people here because they probably know everything about everything already. So
I think
Leslie,
Leslie,
their hands up. Yeah.
yeah, let me see.
hello.
No, I just I just got a bit lost, and I just wanted to ask the bit where Guru Rinpoche represents the true reality of our nature. Is that resting? You said along resting in the visualization. Is that resting in the visualization or
That part is not really resting in the visualization. When it says the recognition, it talks about the inner guru. The outer guru is the one that shows us the inner guru. So Guru Rinpoche represents our true nature.
Yeah.
So what we do, as I said, you can just think. It doesn't need to be Guru Rinpoche. It can be your teacher as you know them. Whatever works for you, really. But just to receive the blessings, mix your mind with the Guru's mind, and just be present. That's what it means, I think.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else?
There was a question in the chat. Should I just read it out
Charles,
loud?
it seems you said Pema Trawa is cinema of Pema. I wasn't quite saying that. But I was really saying that we use these words, and lotus net and, the illusory net and things like that, we use to express how things truly are, the pure realm of luminous clarity. I think what I was saying is that I don't think we should, I was giving this story to say that we shouldn't really think of this as going somewhere else. And I think we also don't need to think that we have to construct some kind of enlightenment, that it's just a question of getting back to our true nature as it is. And I do think this is not really answering your question, Mark. This is me diverging a bit. But I do think that some people think of their Dharma practice as a sort of rather exotic Tibetan thing that they do, and it's in a kind of bubble. And I think it's very important to really dig everything into our daily experience and realize that it's talking about us as we are, and it's just an Oriental thing. That the nature of our mind has no nationality. And of course, we have our own culture, so we have habitual ways of thinking things that are different. I remember Dziga Kongtrul Rinpoche saying once that, well, there are some habits that Tibetans have that are not in accord with Dharma at all, and some that we have that are not in accord with Dharma, and some which maybe are. So I don't think we have to think of this as some exotic thing that we go into. And I know some of us really find very helpful all the different supports. And of course, there's a huge cultural element in some of the practices that we do, but it's important to remember that we're just getting down to who we really are, which our obscurations prevent us from seeing. So somebody was asking about the first three of the 7 factors of union. Well, since I wasn't as learned as Arne, I did jot down the 7 factors of union. And where is it? So I don't know which ones you're referring to, but the ones I have in the list that's in the notes here is complete enjoyment, union, great bliss, lack of inherent nature, compassion, being uninterrupted, and being unceasing. I think Arne went through them extremely well, I must say. I was so impressed, in a slightly different order. But for instance, being unceasing and then being uninterrupted and so forth. But so whichever ones you missed, I think you will find them in that list. And also, if in the text as it is online, and if you download it as a PDF, you can find that information. So David asked before, could you what? Ask more about. Hang on, I'm trying to see this. Could you?
Could you say more about meditating
on the winds?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think this is the place here to discuss the details of any of these practices. But when we talk about the channels, winds, and drops. And the drops is like the wisdom essence, and the channels is the subtle channels in the body, and the winds is the air moving in those. We're talking about subtle air, but there's a connection as well with the breathing, and actually a connection even with speech, for instance. For some practices, just sitting practice, we keep the body very still, and the speech very still, meaning we don't speak and we let the winds just find their own level so that the mind can be still. And So when we're talking about the winds, we're talking about the subtle, sometimes people translate this as energies, the subtle energies in the body. And some people are quite sensitive to this. They feel the energies in their body. Some people have visions easily. Some people visualize just as if they were just looking at something out in the street. Some people are not really very sensitive to these things and don't have any of those experiences. But you can definitely train these things. And as I said, even in the preliminary practices, when you're doing the Vajrasattva practice, and even when you're doing the mandala practice, it's already having an effect on all that stuff. Okay. So is there any other questions here? Arne, do you see any more questions?
No, I don't see anything.
Do you have any answers to questions or?
No.
Okay, so we can go.
Let's meditate, yeah.
We can go on with the next. Arne suggested that we go through each one and contemplate a little bit. And then at the end, we will culminate with just resting as best we can in the nature of our mind. And then we will culminate with the aspiration, the wonderful aspiration that it gives here. So I'm going to share the screen so that we can do that in a convenient manner. Okay. Then I've moved the text to the other screen. Can you still see it? Arne, can you see?
No, we can't see it.
No, I put it back where it was then. Okay. All right, now?
We're still on the, oh yeah, it's back now.
Good. Okay. So what was really wonderful in Lama Tsering's presentation, and actually also in ours, was the way of coming to this aho, which is just a delight at this true nature that's ours. So let's just rest in that for a moment. Just try to rest in the basis of everything, which is the nature of our mind, and in fact, the nature of everything we perceive. And that is the expanse of the luminous clarity of primordial purity, the basic space of the ground. And that emptiness is not merely empty, it has extraordinary qualities. And it says the manifestation of the ground, radiant awareness, appears as the reflection of wisdom. So the nature of our mind is not just empty, but has this ability to know, and this knowingness at its real basis is awareness. endowed with the 7 factors of union, which drawn as great spontaneous perfection. Lake-born Oyen Guru, care for me without ever parting. Of course, the Guru is never parted from us. It's just that we forget we are in our ordinary perceptions. So this is an aspiration to remember the teacher all the time and to remember the true nature of our mind as much as we can. Attaining the freedom and advantages that are so difficult to find is the result of my good deeds. Remembering the uncertainty of the time of death is my impetus to practice the sublime Dharma. They say that thinking of impermanence is really a way to cultivate renunciation. It's a way to encourage you to practice, and also it's a way of finding the meaning of emptiness. So really at all stages of the practice, this notion of impermanence is very important. And also, especially for some of us who are getting older, remembering that this life is going to end at any time, and even when we're young, anything can happen. And that gives us a kind of impetus to practice, also an impetus to remember that when we look around, we see our room, we see all the things we're familiar with, that one day we will be totally separated from them, and they are impermanent, and we are maybe a lot more impermanent than the things we're looking at. That we may, they say it's like a hair pulled out of a piece of butter, that the impression of the hair is there, but the hair isn't there, and that just we may be afraid of death and not wanting to think about it, but it's important to remember death. In fact, when I was 17, I was introduced by someone to the Dharma who told me that for Buddhists, the way you die is very important. And so just thinking of death and impermanence is something that can lead us to a feeling of ease and serenity. This may seem paradoxical, but our fear and our avoidance is sometimes what is creating the difficulty. So let's just think about all that for a moment. Correctly adopting and rejecting actions and their effects is the highest pinnacle of my aims. Some people think that they're Vajrayana practitioners, so they don't need to bother too much about that stuff. Guru Rinpoche says that my view is as high as the sky, and my action is as fine as the flower. And actually, when we talk about realized teachers or realized beings, they may not be constrained by conventional things, but they have an understanding of where things will lead, what will be the result, which goes way beyond anything that we can imagine. And so negative actions will take us away from the truth, and positive actions will take us towards the truth. And also the relationship we have with those around us, with the world, is very much dependent on what we do, not just what our view is or what we think. So this aspect is very, very important. And also not just physical actions, but your mind, which is following, for instance, things on the internet, developing a lot of emotions or anger or desire or fear or whatever it might be, jealousy, greed, whatever it might be, this is having an effect too, even if it's just a moment's thought. So they say that you should be very, very careful. That it says that a spark of anger can really take away a lot of your merit. It says a spark of fire can set fire to a whole mountain. And also, you shouldn't reject even small positive actions. It says drops of water can fill a huge barrel, progressively fill a huge barrel. Heartfelt sadness towards cyclic existence is my gateway to enter the path of liberation. And this is the big difference between the Dharma and some kind of New Age things. A lot of practices of mindfulness, meditation, and so on are aimed at well-being. In other words, making the samsara more pleasant, more comfortable. But as we know, samsara is never satisfactory and in fact can be tremendous suffering. We are living in a country and in a human body where, compared to many people and many other kinds of beings, we're incredibly privileged. But even so, we may be struck down by persecution, illness, war, or death at any time. And even when we have good circumstances, we can develop the habit of finding everything kind of unsatisfactory and never be satisfied. So this is a really important aspect of it's really the understanding of samsara is really fundamental to being able to understand the Dharma and practice the Dharma. So this is something that's really, really worth reflecting on. Taking refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, is the foundation of enlightened qualities. Generating twofold bodhicitta is the root of Mahayana. Diligence in accumulating merit and purifying obscurations is the fertile field for experience and realization. Devotional Guru Yoga is the pillar of practice. And this is really important, the pillar of all practice, we could say. Let's try to work on developing our devotion. And we can say devotion, we can say confidence. in the teacher. If you haven't really met a realized teacher so far, or you haven't managed to really connect, you can always think of Guru Rinpoche, or you can think of some realized teacher that you know about and things like that, and just pray, just feel devotion, feel the aspiration to experience those enlightened qualities. Perceiving whatever arises as the enlightened body of the deity is the culmination of the generation stage. We're not doing that sort of practice for the moment. We can just make aspiration, and really, if we are doing that, we feel encouraged to do the practice and really work on the different aspects of the practice, and also, importantly, to try to bring that into the everyday experience that we have, and not be constantly slipping back into a very materialistic, ordinary way of seeing things. Guru Rinpoche once said to us when we were in retreat that, you don't absolutely have to always be imposing your visualization on everything you see, but more just seeing the enlightened qualities and purity of everything you perceive. Of course, sometimes we might be doing that as a practice to try to see everyone that we see around us as Chenrezi or whatever, and that's very, very good. But even when we're not doing that, to just appreciate that everybody has Buddha nature, and that the universe, the nature of the universe, is absolute space awareness, even if we can't perceive it. Meditating on the winds inseparable from the mind is the heart essence of the perfection stage. Cultivating the union of basic space and awareness is the engagement of the great perfection. By having the good fortune to continuously apply the key points, along with resting in the direct recognition of my true nature, the lake-born Guru, channels, winds, and drops are fully purified. In the center of the lotus-necked pure realm of luminous clarity. Now, I think you remember that Lama Tsering said we should contemplate and then just let go, just relax. When she says relax, she doesn't mean relax in the normal sense of just relaxing in your ordinary thoughts and desires. It means to let go of all your conceptual habits, all your conceptual way of thinking things, and just coming back to the present moment as it is. So we've been trying to have a little look again, contemplate these different points. So let's do that just to think of the teacher, think of the importance of the practice, the importance of the human life, and what a wonderful opportunity we have, and then just come back and be present here and now, and just rest for a moment. And then let's just make the aspiration that to accomplish the rainbow body in this very life. In a lot of Guru Rinpoche's prayers and practices, he mentions this, that in this very life, may we attain the great transforming rainbow body. So let's just wish for enlightenment which can have the enlightened qualities at the service of all beings. So thank you, everybody. I will hand over to Arne now. And if there's any more questions or things,
I think we could conclude. It's already has
there
been a
was
little
one
bit.
more question: how the winds practice connect with Dzogchen. But that's quite a big subject. I don't think, in the context of this brief going through everything, we can really go into that in detail. But I do think I've explained how all these practices are connected. That in the same way that the practice with the winds and the chakras and the tigles and the channels and that affects the mind affects that, and they all it all goes together. And whether it's liberated by the path of means or the path of liberation, the important thing is, as it says in the 7-point mind training, antidotes must conquer. That means it must work and it must take you in the direction of enlightenment. And if you have a misunderstanding of things and see things in a material way, then it might be going in a different direction. So this is why it's so important to have the Guru devotion, refuge, bodhicitta, and pure heart.
And with that motivation, we dedicate the marriage. By this marriage, may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may all beings be free. Lord of the ocean of teachings in Tibet without bias, universal monarch of 7 wondrous transmissions, Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo, Manyu Gosha in person, may all be auspicious for a lineage to spread and flourish. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may a true remain to elevate the sufferings of the world. Okay, thank you everybody for joining, for your interest in Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo's wisdom. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Rashmi and Ina. And thank you, Clara Benson, for translating into French.
And thank
And
you,
of
Arne.
course, yeah, thank you. And of course, thank you, Lupon Sunam Jamsu, for translating this text so wonderfully into English. And 2 little things I want to make you aware of. The first thing, I think Rashmi was already posting a link in the chat recently. So we will have this verse to music session soon. You know, that is another initiative that we have in Cancer Vision Project, where we want to, bring these Vajra songs, especially from Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo, into like a contemporary modern music kind of style, to have a different way to relate to them. And last but very far from least, please use our website. I show it to you again. So please read, contemplate, meditate, and embody what you read. And we have translated, many texts so far, and there's always like there are always like 5 tabs here, you know. Ina just asked me to mention them. So the English is apparently the English text with also the Tibetan, easy. Then we have like an about section where, for example, the translator is thanked, and also our important Khyentse Foundation, you know, who makes all that possible. Never forget that. And then a nice introduction to each text, bibliography, and copyright stuff. And then there's also a world of related content for each text. So we are gathering, videos, teachings.
When Arne says we, he is the one in charge of this. He's really taking care of that. And you can always just, whenever you find something that interests you, you can usually find some interesting extra stuff here.
Yeah, that was a majestic we, I feel. Sorry for that. Anyway, the point is we want to make, we at Cancer Vision Project, we have the idea to make each text juicy, relatable, that it's not dusty somewhere on the shelf or virtually. So therefore, I do create then this related material, you know, with different, references, other teachings, other videos, academic papers, pictures, books, and so on. Then there's another word that we, not me, are doing, is like a glossary of all the important terms of this present text that you're looking into, you know, where you can find it, the key, the key definitions, let's say. And then, of course, there's also the original Tibetan, and then it always states, you know, where the text starts, this text starts at line 6, so you can count it, you can also see it, you know, then we have the title, and then it starts with the Aho. Yeah, so please use this website. This is really like already an incredible material.
Can I just add that, as you probably noticed, that you can download the thing as a PDF and look at it whenever you feel, especially if there's a practice you want to do. Some people even like to print things out or whatever. And also, I really think that it's important and interesting to look around the website. It shows the different types of text and the different. You can look around for what particularly interests you.
Yeah, there are so many different genres, but also there are also already a couple of other masters, you know, whose works we have translated, like Guru Rinpoche, Tadak Lingpa, and so on. And we will also, that's why it's called Khyentse Vision, you know, we will also include other masters like Chikme Lingpa, Mipam Rinpoche, and so on. So it will be it's already a big treasure, and it will be an even bigger, big treasure. Okay, that's it. Aho, and take good care. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Arne and Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Arne.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Arne.
Thank you, both
You,
of
Arne.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.